Hi guys, and welcome to another edition of the Kevin Moore Show. Now on today's show, I'm about to be joined by my guest, Layne Dalfen. Now just to give you a bit of background on Layne, she has been interpreting her own and her clients' dreams for many years. Now during her lectures as well as throughout her books, her goal is to introduce to the general public the value of understanding their dreams and more. So Layne Dalfen, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Kevin. I am. No, actually, I don't. I'm a Gestalt counselor, but I came upon dream work. It's kind of more that the dreams came to me. I'm 67, and I had four lovely daughters, the first of which was born just after my 21st birthday with Down syndrome. And I'm a person who's always had incredible dream recall. And a couple of months after Tina was born, because I was advised by a doctor to give her up. That was 46 years ago. And most people didn't take their Downs babies home 46 years ago. It was more typical at that time to have them institutionalized. And this doctor, I was like 20, and he said, no, you know, don't bring her home, and just go on with your life. Go home, forget you ever had her, hurry up and get pregnant again. That was his advice, which I kind of followed. But about 2 or 3 months later, I became depressed. That's understandable. And I went into Freudian psychoanalysis with a brilliant New York analyst. And so my introduction to Freud, before I studied him, was I experienced Freud first, because I wasn't so well able to articulate my feelings in my early 20s, but I used to go to the sessions with a shrink, always with a dream. And so that was where I first discovered that actually the dream, and this is one of the most important things I'll say to you today, the dream is the conversation you're having with yourself about a very specific current issue that you are attempting to problem solve. And of course, the solution to something that's bugging you, of course, the solution arrives in your unconscious before it gets to your conscious mind. And so you can propel your problem solving skills. And that's just the first level, because I will go deep with you today. But I'm a first things first kind of girl. And so first I want to know, what is the situation in today's life that triggered this morning's dream? And I ask a series of questions to the dreamer. But I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you a perfect and beautiful example of life-changing solutions that happen to us in our dreams. And so after I was in the psychiatrist's office for maybe about 2 months or something, I started having a series of recurring dreams about a freight elevator. And I teach at the university here in Montreal to the counseling students. I've been doing that for years and years. And I also lecture at IASD. And so I often ask people, when you're looking for a solution, you might want to take the picture of the dream and take it out into your waking life and make a decision that way. So I ask people in class, what would be your solution to the freight elevator dream? Because I will tell you how it makes me feel. The space is way too big. The floor is wobbly, because you know freight elevators are huge. And so it's got that wobbly floor and it makes me feel really uncomfortable. And I'll often ask people what their solution, what is your solution, for example, Kevin, if you're in this big wide space of a freight elevator with a wobbly floor. Well, I mean, just to give you an example, some people say I'd sit down. Other people say I would press the emergency button or I'd get off the elevator. My solution was to bring people into the elevator. Because if you bring people in, you put a lot of weight on the floor and it stops wobbling. And and it also fills up the space around you. So now the space is not so big anymore because I've got people in the elevator with me. And I'm going off the track here, but don't worry, I'm coming back. Is that your subconscious mind, your unconscious, is an incredible database that's holding every single memory and association you've ever had since you're born. And we use these images from our database when we want to say something to ourselves. And the freight elevator, for me personally, brought me right back to my childhood, where my father used to bring me to work with him on Saturdays and Sundays sometimes. And there was a huge freight elevator there. So my memories and associations to a freight elevator are very personal, as all of our associations are personal. And for me, it links me to my father. And it made me realize that's who I want to invite into the elevator. My parents, my father and mother, because I used to be nervous in the freight elevator, but I always felt okay because he was with me. And so that was a perfect scenario about my situation with Tina and having given her up. I realized after a couple of months in psychoanalysis, this is not working for me. I had a baby. Where is she? Who is she? I don't want to be disconnected from her. So the freight elevator dream encouraged me to invite my parents to come and find Tina at the institution where she was placed and bring her back into my life again. And Tina, after, she passed away a couple of years ago at 44. She would have been 46 today. She was the most wonderful and happy person I ever met in my life. She spent her whole life living in the present. She never had anxiety about the future. She never had disappointment about the past. She spent her whole life living in the present, which is what all of us would love to do. We would be anxiety free that way. And she always had a big fat smile on her face. So it was the dream that made me connect to the current issue, because at the first level, it was about Tina and the uncomfortable decision I made about giving her up that did not fit for me. But in long-term way, I mean, I made a lifelong decision from the freight elevator dreams. And so I became fascinated with the subject, and I'm a thorough kind of personality. And so Freud wasn't good enough for me. When I went into my 30s, I enrolled at the Gestalt Counseling and Training Center. I learned how Frederick Perls looked at dreams. And then when I was turning 40, I went to the Alfred Adler Institute because I wanted to know, what about Adler? What did he think about dreams? And then I became a member of the C.G. Jung Society. And so what you're seeing after 46 years, looking at you right here, having studied dream analysis for 46 years, I can tell you, so the way I look at dreams is an eclectic approach using Freud, Jung, Adler, and Perls. That's where I'm coming from.
Wow. Okay, lots to take in there, and
Yes.
I know that we've got a lot to talk about as well, and obviously just going over how our brain operates as well with the sleep stages. Obviously, we go through different stages of sleep, and there's a sort of 90-minute sleep cycle. So have you studied the sort of how the brain works and what the sort of scientific
I
stages
do.
are of sleep? Yeah.
Yes, I do. But my niche and my specialty is about problem solving. And I want to just follow myself up now that you heard the freight elevator dream, I want to give you a one picture dream from a woman so that you can actually see the mirror, because people begin to really get me and understand what I'm doing and my specialty once I start giving you these one picture examples so that you can get where I'm going. So, one of my favorites is this woman who dreams that she's got a brand new puppy. And she's so excited about the puppy that she's got it up on the table in front of her so she could be face to face with it. And all of a sudden, the puppy poos all over the table, all over her. She's got it up and down her arms. It's a big mess. And similar to the freight elevator dream, I have other ways of you pointing out the solution to the issue. But in this particular case, I used take the story outside to your waking life, which I did. And I asked her, if you really had a puppy and it really pooed all over you right in front of all over the table, what would you do with it? And she said, I would take it off the table right away and I'd clean it up. And I'm always writing like a maniac, because what I'm really doing is teaching you the language of metaphor, because that's the conversation that we have with ourselves. It's all done in the language of metaphor. And so that dream was the incident that triggered the dream. And the way I found it was you use I call them points of entry. There's 6 points of entry you can use. I used the feelings by asking the dreamer, wow, at the beginning of the dream, you're so excited about the puppy. And then it takes a real turn for the worst, that there's all this poo all over the place. What do you think happened in your life this week? A situation that started out feeling new and happy and suddenly took a really wrong turn for the worse. And it was her job. She got hired by this man. She was so excited about her new job. And after being there about 3 days, she understood that this is a really abusive guy. And he was literally pooing all over her. You know that expression. And we take expressions that we use during the day, and very often we turn them into a picture at night. And so her response to my question, what would you do in a waking life situation? She said she would take it off the table, and a further investigation of her language and her expressions that she likes to use. When you take something off the table in her language, the subject is non-negotiable. It's off the table. She's not going to discuss it anymore. And so because she understood her use of metaphor, she quit the job the next day. She got up and quit the job. She took the thing off the table. And so whether you remember your dreams or you don't, that woman would have quit the job anyway, but it might have taken her a couple of weeks to realize to take the jump. But because she understood the language of her dream, she quit the job the next day because she knew, I'm taking this off the table.
What would have stopped her, or what stops people, do you think, in general, remembering their dreams as well? Why does the mind stop us from remembering them sometimes?
Well, there's a memory trace in your brain that's not working at the same capacity when you're asleep as when you're awake. So there's a physiological reason why you wouldn't remember. And the other reason, of course, is that they don't seem to make any sense. And so we blow them off. But you shouldn't blow them off, because you can, besides that, you can propel your problem-solving skills today, like the woman who quit that job. Besides that, there's long-lasting life solutions that are there for us. Change is possible. I'm not here to tell you that change is easy, but I am here to tell you that change is possible. And it's not any different than exercising muscle in a gym. So this other fellow, Stephen, who's dreaming that he's climbing up a ladder and it's filled with paper everywhere. There's paper all over the place. It's even making it difficult for him to get up to the top. And at the top of the ladder is his college roommate, who he hasn't seen in 25 years. but it's his college roommate encouraging him up the ladder. And so, using a symbol's point of entry, I asked him, why don't you tell me what are the first 2 or 3 things that come to your mind when you think about that roommate? And this is what came out of his mouth. He was a real selfish, take care of me kind of person. So now we've understood that that's his association to, that's who's encouraging him up the ladder. And the situation that triggered the dream is that dreamer, like many of us, we all know people like this, myself included, those of us who don't know how to say no, we're always saying yes, we're always accommodating. And I'm going a little bit deeper now, Kevin, and that's because that dreamer, Stephen, was brought up by parents and he had a bunch of siblings. So the messages that he got as a child were that it's not okay to be selfish, because the messages he would hear, even not direct ones, were go share your toys with your brother, go look after your sister. And so the whole background the whole home he grew up in was all about sharing, which has nothing to do. So he became under-exercised in being selfish and over-exercised in saying yes and giving and always accommodating. And the reason why our over and under-exercised aspects of our personality, the reason why they don't work is because life throws you every different situation that you can imagine. We deal with loss, we deal with jealousy, we deal with anger, we deal with all these different kinds of situations in our life, and your knee-jerk, over-exercised parts of your personality that you learned as a child were the right way to be and the wrong way to be, they don't fit every situation. You don't want to be stuck. And Stephen triggered that dream because he had all kinds of work on his desk. That's all the paper. And the ladder is him trying to get ahead in his working world. And his friends asked him to go to a movie with them the day before the dream. And he said, okay, when he really wanted to say no. And the college roommate that's up at the top of the ladder encouraging him, it represents the selfish, take care of me first aspect of Stephen's personality. And that's what he needs to tap into, because that roommate is the solution to today's current issue. And because he understood that, same as that woman quit her job, fell through, Stephen called up his friends the next day and said, you know what? I'm sorry, I'm not going to a movie with you tonight. There's too much work on my desk and I need to look after it. So that is what I call Stephen's first time in the gym. Exercising that muscle about how to say no. How to say no. Sometimes you have to say no.
Well, do you try to interpret all of your own personal dreams as well?
I do.
Yeah.
And I've been doing that for 47 years. So, yeah.
Incredible. And I mean, how do you know sometimes that the interpretation is right?
Well, because you see it on the dreamer's face each and every time. Because it's the dreamer that's coming with this, like I can't tell Stephen what that college roommate means to him, or how that college roommate relates to his current situation. But what I do, and this is what I do in my books as well, and when you meet me in person, I'm always teaching you the questions, the questions that you could be asking yourself to help you uncover A, why did I have that dream last night? B, what's the solution to today's current issue? And C, when you want to go deeper, why am I responding to my life situation today the way I am? Where does that come from? And it comes from your past, I promise you. Whatever situation is going on today, it's not new news that how you're responding. Your knee-jerk, over-exercised parts of yourself, they're all sitting there waiting to be, and Carl Jung would have called your unexercised parts your shadow.
Absolutely, absolutely. You know, whenever I've thought about dreams, I mean, obviously being very uneducated about it, right? I've always thought, you know, is that my soul that's coming through?
Yeah,
Is
yeah,
is that the universal mind coming through?
yeah, a little bit of everything, I think. Some people say it's God, some people say it's your higher self, and we do have similarities. It's true that we do have certain similarities, like that famous teeth falling out dream, and how all of us, all through time, it doesn't matter where you are in the world or where you are in time, we all lose our teeth at around 6 or 7 years old. It's something that we have no control over, and it's the inevitable. And so I know a woman who used her teeth falling out because she knew somewhere inside her higher self, because she was not facing this or acknowledging it in any way, shape, or form during the day, that her husband was about to break off with her. But somewhere inside, she knew, and she was dreaming about her teeth falling out because it was something that she had no control over and something that was the inevitable. But if you look it up in a book, Teeth Falling Out, in one of those ridiculous dream dictionaries, you'll see that it talks about transition, which is true. Splitting up with your husband is transition, no question about it. Yeah, but you want to ask the dreamer, because even Carl Jung said that, images that transcend time, they need to resonate with the dreamer. Even the archetypal images, if they're not resonating with the dreamer, then what good are they? They need to resonate with you.
Well, that's right. I mean, it's like, the astrology charts. If you're going to go see your astrological chart, that's not actually made for you for that particular week. It's just going to be a very general kind of reading, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? That you
Right.
may get some pull towards, but it's not going to resonate because your journey is your journey, isn't it? It's very personal.
I love that you said that, because for me, that's one of the hallmarks of dream analysis, is that dream analysis is the act of looking in. It's the art of looking in, and it's the only place we have control. It's, because we can't not change somebody else, but
Well, no, I mean,
can change
absolutely.
yourself.
Absolutely, and sometimes when I've people or myself has had for example, psychic reading, it's just sometimes we don't always want to do the house cleaning ourselves. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
And but with what you're suggesting here, it's actually it's forcing you to take responsibility and to actually say, look, you have your own intuition guidance system in many ways. Sometimes it's through just a deep knowing, and another way is through dreams. It's another way to do it yourself, basically. But most people don't want to do it themselves. They don't want to take responsibility. They want someone else to tell them how to think, how to feel, and what to do.
Yeah, but it's unbelievable that you wake up with the finest therapist right there in the bed with you every morning when you wake. And if you write them down and you learn the interview questions that you can ask yourself, and I'll just, if I may, I'm going to tell you what the 6 points of entry are. The feelings, which you saw an example where I noticed with the puppy dream that she started out so happy and it took a turn. And so I was able to ask her, and that's how she found out that it was about the job, because the change in feelings. And then there's a symbols point of entry, which I used with Stephen. And that was how we found out about the college roommate being a selfish person, and that he needed to access that potential that he has to be selfish. Then there's the action in the dream. And that's when you hear people say, oh, I was trying to run and my feet weren't moving. And so that's an action oriented thing. Or a woman who dreams that the whole dream is that she's jumping out of her chair, which is in absolute flames. So there's action, and that was to stop her procrastinating. Oh my God. That she was like really badly procrastinating about a subject in her life. And there she dreams that her chair's on fire, and it's literally giving her the physical rehearsal. because the dreams give you a rehearsal, and that was what I call a rehearsal dream about her getting up and out to get to work, you know. And okay, so then there's the repetition, which we do constantly. You might remember in school, read it, write it, recite it. Read it, write it, recite it. And we do that in our unconscious as well. So I remember years ago, about 20 years ago, because I'm really a radio kind of person. I love radio, and I'm so at home. But I had never been on TV before. It was my first time. I was called to go to be on Fox in New York City after the Christmas holidays. And all during the holidays, I was having these dreams, you know, about fear. And then one morning, one night, I should say, I dreamt first about a ghost. And what does that mean? It means I'm scared. In my database or my filing cabinet, when I see a ghost, it means I'm scared. And then later on, I dreamt that I was standing on the abyss of a cliff. And what does that mean? It means I'm scared. And close to the morning, I dreamt about my grade 5 teacher. And what does that mean? It means I'm scared. So I'm saying I'm scared, I'm scared, I'm scared. We're using 3 completely different metaphors. But this is what I'm trying to say to myself. And the dream is trying to encourage me. I'm hearing some sounds that are coming back at me. It's okay. All right. And so that's me trying to get in touch with myself about the fact that I'm feeling frightened. And the whole point of that, your healthy unconscious is trying to do in most every single dream is encourage you to talk about the problem while you're awake. Because we human beings I call this welcome to the human race. Lie, we deny, and we avoid, and we sweep. We do not want to look at stuff. And it's the natural course of being human. But your unconscious, on the other hand, never lies to you. And it's always giving you back everything that you're trying to avoid. So even a nightmare, for example, the nightmare is the overreaction to your underreaction.
So, you know, one of my dreams, just thinking about it more recently, has always been, it's always going back to the past. I'm always back at my old house where I used to live as a child, or I'm back in an old memory somewhere. It's always, they've been, drawn to like old memories, and I'm like, what is that?
That's
Is
so
that
funny.
saying?
Because
Yeah.
on Instagram TV, I swear to you, Kevin, maybe 1 week ago, it's like just put it up. I put up a 2-minute thing on Instagram TV specifically about houses and how we use them in our dreams. And then I even had a dreamer one-on-one a few days ago that I put up also about a house. And so the house that you grew up in, can you just tell me what are 2 or 3 things that come to your mind very quickly? What comes to your mind about that house?
Oh, okay. Well, one of them is my parents' bedroom. The other is the outdoor garden, which I had a lot of fun in, and maybe what's the third thing maybe the front room sometimes. But I would say it's normally empty. My family's not there, and there's always been a dark presence in my parents' room. It's felt like, and it's
Right.
I
And
don't know. Yeah.
did you have an easy time with your parents?
Yeah, it was a good childhood as far as I'm
Okay,
aware. You
excellent.
know,
It was a good
but
childhood, but
yeah,
I want to add, and you always have to
sure.
agree or disagree because it's your dream, not mine. And so I would say that even though I also had a wonderful childhood, wonderful, that dark presence in my parents' room was just the way it is because we don't have the power when we're little children. And they do have control over us about when we're in trouble, when we're not in trouble. So there's that looming thing in the background. Like if my father was yelling at me when I was 6 or 7, I couldn't say to him, "Excuse me, I don't like how you're talking to me. I'm going to go out and I'll be back in about 20 minutes." Like you couldn't, we didn't have the power to do that.
No, no. But there's also as well a lot of love. There's also that feeling that everyone's moved on and I haven't. There's that feeling that
Oh,
no
I
one's
love
there.
that.
No one's there.
Yes,
You know,
and
but it's me playing by myself, and I'm like, well, I still love the memory that of that time, but everyone's gone.
everyone's moved on, you said. I want to
Yeah.
use your language and stay with it because your language is the whole thing as far as I'm concerned. And that would make me want to ask you, what do you think has happened in the last couple of weeks? Because it's not you had that dream fairly recently. And do you think
It's
there's
a
something in
repeated.
your life
Yeah.
that you've, but each time you use it, it's for another reason because it's the favorite expression. And so the reason why you used it the last time is not the same reason, not the same situation that you may have used it 10 years ago. And the flavor of the dream is about when that maybe you might use that picture, that dream of your old house when something's going on in your current life that has that flavor of people moving on and you not. So you must be feeling, do you think you have it when you're feeling less than? Less than. You give yourself a solution by going back to that house. That was my dream. If that was my dream and I had those associations, yes, I would use it to say to myself that I feel less than or that I'm not moving as quickly in my life as I would like. But I would also be using it simultaneously as the place where I know my roots are good. Inside, I'm good. I've got that dark presence. That dark presence at this point in my life is because I'm an adult now. That's the garbage that I say to myself about myself. That's the garbage, the parental part of myself when I'm not being nice to myself. I might go back there also to remind myself of the my good beginnings. My goodness, my good beginnings.
Absolutely. And if I had a sort of started to document my dreams every day, then you can always go. I could have always gone back to that dream that we're discussing there, and maybe with documenting it, I could have with the further dreaming and stuff. I suppose you can sort of see a correlation with where you are now to what maybe that previous dream meant.
Absolutely. I love what you're
Yeah.
saying because you really are getting me. Now I know that you're really getting me. It's like my freight elevator dreams happened for a long time before I understood them. But once I understood it, then I know that when I see a freight elevator, I'm not feeling like I have my ground and I'm feeling insecure. That's what it means.
Yes,
Look
absolutely,
it
it
up.
does.
And you can't look
Well,
that up in a book.
no, 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 no. And just actually talking about books, obviously, we're going to get back to what we're discussing. Obviously, you've got your book is called.
Have a Great Dream, which is the same as my site, haveagreatdream.com. And the first book is called Have a Great Dream, The Overview. That's book one. And it's only 114 pages, and I'm including the pictures. It's like 100 pages, and it teaches you exactly how to do it, how to uncover why you had that dream last night. And then if you want to go deeper, then you'd buy Have a Great Dream, a deeper discussion.
But you talk in there as well. Thank you. And there's a lot on your website, and obviously there's ways to contact you because you do sessions as well,
Yeah.
which I think is fantastic.
Yeah.
So that we're linking that in the description of the video below. But also, I think, do you talk about in the book? I'm going to use the word a dreaminar, for example.
Yes.
A book. Yes, you do. I thought you did, but I thought I saw that in the book.
Yeah.
And
Seminar is when you call me like what you and I are doing, but
yes,
instead of on Skype, we do it on Google. I can't remember what it's called. Hangouts.
Google Hangouts.
Google
Yeah.
Hangouts, and then it goes right up on YouTube.
Amazing.
And I do
Okay.
it for
Okay.
free.
That's beautiful. Thank you for what you do. But yeah, I remember reading some of the Edgar Cayce books on dreaming, and even he would talk about, writing the dreams down when you wake up, sort of, not being in that sort of that hazy kind of stage where you're just woken up, but you're not fully awake, but you're kind of scrolling. It's a bit of a practice, isn't it? But have you come across the Cayce material when it comes to the dream analysts?
I love Edgar Cayce, and he's got that spiritual slant, which I don't do in my work. I do not. I stick to what I'm doing. It's like my late father used to say, don't. He used to say, he was the opposite of branch out. He used to say, find your niche and let people know that that's what you're known for. That small niche. And so I stick to metaphor. But I also happen to be, it's like off the record, I happen to be a spiritual person. And so if I dream about my father, I would say to you that he represents that male business side of myself, as opposed to my mother, who's my nurturing family side. My father's more my business male side. And if I dream about him before I go on a business trip, it's because my unconscious is trying to access my male side that gets on the plane. But how do you and I know that my father's not also visiting me? He probably is.
Well, that's it, isn't it? I mean, how do you know? I mean, you can't, when it comes to this stuff, it's so amazing that we can even dream. Do you know what I mean? That the mind can do such a thing. That that I feel that we're a soul having a human experience, and I try to include that in the, even in a conversation like this. Where is the soul taking a where is the soul connection in this? But I also want to say to you as well, obviously, I've covered a lot of paranormal subjects as well, and one of the things that people have said to me, that I've met, is that why am I dreaming of ETs? Why am I dreaming of being abducted? Why am I dreaming that that there's some sort of connection with something that's not from this world? I mean, have you come across that in some of your work?
Yes, people asking me about it, but I can't offer too much because I don't know. But what I do know is that the unconscious mind is so sophisticated that I'm just as excited about it today as I was 47 years ago. Honest to goodness. It blows me away, and I feel absolutely compelled to get the information out to the general public, that don't blow it away, even if it's a one-picture dream. That's why I use the one-picture dreams in interviews so often, because I want people to get it, that you don't need a story with a beginning, a middle, and an end, because we repeat ourselves so much in our dreams that even if you get a small snippet, it's like one of my teachers told me, you don't have to walk into the field of flowers. If you get a little bouquet, you get the sense of what's going on in the field.
Absolutely. And thank you for that. And with your book, or books, the people are able to then, learn how to analyze their dreams, because I mean that's what the books are doing. That's what's the important part of them, and that's something that people can do themselves once they've sort of got used to it.
Using those 6 points of entry. And I'll just add, I know I didn't talk about play on words and puns, which we use constantly in our waking life, and we use them in our dreams as well. So if I would have said to one of my daughters one day, get over here, I'm going to kill you. If you speak like that, in that language, she might go to sleep tonight and dream someone's trying to kill her. And I might go to sleep tonight and dream that I'm killing somebody. So you want to listen to the language, or I'll get dreamers saying to me, oh, I was dreaming I had to pee so badly, and I finally found a bathroom, but I got into the stall, and then I couldn't get out of the stall. And when I hear that, I will absolutely use that point of entry, and I'll ask the dreamer, what do you think is going on in your life that you're stalling? What are you stuck in a stall about?
Well, absolutely. But obviously a lot of people won't admit to it, but there's a lot of sexual dreams as well that we have.
Yes.
And I mean, they've obviously got a meaning as well. Not what we think that they mean, but there's a deeper reason for those as well, isn't there?
Well, I know, talk about language for a minute. I had a woman not too long ago said to me, and this is how she spoke. She said, I had the most amazing sex with this guy who I would never sleep with in a million years. Why am I dreaming that I'm having, and it's like amazing sex, but I would never sleep with this guy in a million years. So once she used that expression, that was what, and then of course it was, what did you do recently that felt so amazing? Not necessarily sexual. What felt so amazing? Something that you said you'd never do in a million years. And it was the boat. She said she would never go on a boat in a million years. And her husband went and bought a boat without even asking her. And they had just spent the weekend on the boat, and they even slept on it. So that's where she got the sex from, because they slept on the boat, and the rocking and the movement, and how she loved the feeling. And so she used the experience of how much she loved the boat, and put a guy in there that she works with who she would never sleep with in a million years. But sometimes just to interrupt, sorry, but sometimes you have a sexual dream because you're horny and you forgot what it feels like to feel good. And that's what Alfred Adler, as opposed to Freud, who was looking into your past, Alfred Adler was more future oriented, and he would have said that the dream gives rise to an emotion that helps you move forward towards the goal. And in this case, a horny dream, the goal is to remind you about how good that feels and go get it.
Absolutely. Thank you for that.
But I could also say to you that I got so screwed in business, like really screwed in business. And if that's how I talk, you better believe that's going to come out as in the dream with a sexual connotation.
Okay, that's fantastic. But, so much to talk about here as well. But what about the idea of lucid dreaming, when you are completely aware that you're in the dream?
That's a great question. And so here's my take on lucid dreaming, because that's when you become semi-conscious. For those who don't know, you become semi-conscious in the dream and you realize that you are dreaming. And the amazing thing about lucid dreaming is that you can manipulate the dream. So if somebody is chasing you, you can turn around and say to that person, why are you chasing me? Like, who are you? Or what do you want? So you can manipulate the dream if you become lucid. And so for me, which I think that's great, because when you're lucid in a dream, it's giving you the opportunity to exercise making change in your life about a certain situation. It's giving you that power, and it gives you a rehearsal, so that when you wake up in the morning and it's about that you're aggravated with your wife, the lucid dream has given you the practice. But my personal take on it, which is the same as Stephen LaBerge, who's one of the foreground workers of lucid dreaming, is that the whole point is to become lucid while you're awake. And you can accomplish lucidity while you're awake the same as you can if you're doing it in a dream. So in other words, let me just think. Okay, I grew up in a home where I learned to become over-exercised in shutting up and under-exercised in speaking up. And so when I was 40, that was the year my dad died. And it was also the years that I was studying at the Alfred Adler Institute about moving forward. And one night, Andy and I had an argument, and he opened up that big mouth to me. But I stood there saying absolutely nothing, like I would if I was 7 and he was my dad. And so I went to sleep that night, and I dreamt about an aunt of mine who had already been dead for 15 years. But using a symbol's point of entry, when I woke up, I asked myself, what comes to my mind when I think about her? And the first thing, I would even say it to you today, she had the biggest mouth. She was the most assertive person I ever met. And if she didn't like you, she had no problem letting you know about it. So I needed to access that sleeping, shadowy aspect of my personality, and I needed to utilize it in my current situation with Andy. And so because I understood that, you're not going to become like, change doesn't happen that fast. I'm not going to become the big mouth assertive person that she was overnight if I'm over exercised and shutting up. But because I understand the unconscious is trying, it's using a polarity to try and pull you a little bit towards the middle. I woke up the next morning and I said, Andy, could you please not yell at me like that? It makes me feel like I'm 7 and I'm with my father. And, so you and I know that my response to that predicament was inappropriate. So for me, there's no such thing as good or bad. There's no such thing as right or wrong. I am all about appropriate and inappropriate. Does my waking life response fit the situation? And Andy's my equal. I don't have to stand there saying nothing. And so that's what I call being lucid. So because I was not lucid in the dream, I used the messages of the dream and the metaphor to make my waking life lucid, for goodness sake. And I was able to start exercising that part of my personality that at the time was sleeping. But now I've been doing this for 20 years. I've got that muscle good. And I can tell you that after about 2 or 3 years of changing my behavior and practicing that exercise of speaking up for myself when it was appropriate, I got really comfortable with that. And along with it, Andy doesn't yell at me anymore. Andy hasn't raised his voice at me in over 20 years because as I was getting stronger at that muscle, he was learning like people change around you. When you change, people change because they know I'm not going to like start yelling at that girl because she's going to know how to put me in my place if I do.
Okay, well, that's fascinating information there, lady, about the idea that being aware within the dream. And I know that there's so much more we could talk about right now, and I've just got to sort of put a limit on this interview right now. But I would love to get you back on. I really would. And just remind the audience as well. Your website is
Haveagreatdream.com because all dreams are great.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, just before we go as well, what would you say is the most important message of your work as well?
That long-term change is possible, and we don't have the power to change anybody, but we sure do have the power to change ourselves. We can pick and choose. We can be so powerful that we can actually pick and choose how you want to respond to different people and situations in your life. You don't need to be stuck with your same old boring reactions over and over and over again.
Well, Layne, that's absolutely beautiful. Thank you for that. Thank you for coming on today, and I look forward to getting you back on.
Oh, I would love that. That's great. Love that. Thank you.